Do we do that during the? I can do it during the.
Yeah. Very profound moment to come into that.
Yeah, I'll just pull the camera.
Yeah. Well, I'll do a little intro. Welcome everybody to this live ACO Q&A. My name is Edd Wright, and it's a pleasure to be hosting again. We had a week off, a little bit of a break, but we're back. So I am. We are doing it's a bit of a change. We're doing a one-on-one this time. It's our first one, so bear with us, or bear with me, as it were. So yeah, I'd like to introduce you to Des Whelan ACO. Hi, Des.
Hi, Ed.
How's it going?
Good, good.
Des, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get my script up here. A little thing. Yeah. So some of Des's credits include Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Fury, and Darkest Hour, among many other credits, which we'll touch on a few of them at some point. If you want to ask any questions at any point throughout the webinar, drop them in the tab below. There's a Q&A tab, and we'll try and get them to Des. And yeah, we'll do that. So obviously, Des, you worked on some fantastic stuff over the years, and obviously, one question I had for some panelists at the very beginning of the webinars that I did was, what is it you miss about working on a film set? And it's been quite a while, isn't it, since COVID? So I'm wondering if there's anything are you incomplete in some way without being on a film set?
I'm incomplete under normal circumstances. I know, it's funny. We were just talking about this today. We'll enjoy going back to work. Because I finished a picture in the States in December. So I haven't done anything since January. I was about to start something in March, and then COVID kicked in. So that kind of got postponed. So yeah, it's been kind of living one month to another. I have a DIY list, which my wife very generously makes up every other. It seems to expand, defies the laws of physics, to be honest. Yeah, I miss the getting up and the routine, and the getting up in the morning, doing my thing, coming back. If you spend your whole life doing that, suddenly you just kind of forced hiatus on you. For a month is fine. 2 months, you start kind of thinking. 3, 4, 5 months later, it kind of feels like retirement, and it's not a good feeling. But what I'm missing, I miss the camaraderie and the being on location and make stuff happen. There's nothing there, and then 6 months later you're watching a movie, and I love that anticipation. I miss that. I miss all that. Don't miss the food.
Yeah. What about structure? Do you like to have structure in your life?
I do. Yeah, I think film is very structured, and so it gives you all that kind of structure. But I miss the crew. I like the conversations. I like what I do. So if you're not doing it, it's nothing fulfills that space really.
Well, I wonder if we can tuck into what I'm calling the dark art of camera operating. And I want to ask some tricky questions, and some questions that we don't normally ask. But I think it's important. And so if we put
dark art, but I'll have a go.
The other side, the flip side. If we put aside the technical aspects of operating a camera for one moment, what range of skills do you feel a camera operator requires, to navigate? I mean, it's a big question, but what sort of range of skills do you think a camera operator requires to navigate through the film and television industry?
Yeah, I mean, I often say, camera operating is self-explanatory. I mean, the job description's in the word itself. But if you assume that everyone can operate a camera, then you think, well, that's fine. That's all they have to do is just operate the camera. But it's not that. Everyone knows it's not. There's no more than someone lighting the set. You can light the set. If it all looks beautiful and everyone's got a different approach to that. It's more than that. It's personality. It's kind of empathy with something. The politics is, everything's got politics, so you got to be aware of that. And I don't think you can pick that up, as like you can learn to operate a camera. I think you have to kind of experience that, watch other people, getting on with people. It's very much a collaborative business, and you have to know where you fit into that, and find your place. And every film, your place is slightly different than it was the previous time, because you can be invited into more creative process or not, depending on who you're working with, depending on your director or your DP, if they invite you into that space, but you're not entitled to it. So you have to know, every film has its own personality, and you have to know how you can help that get along. You're not there to impose anything on it. You're there to facilitate the kind of the director's personality or the DP's personality, but you're all there for the story. And so you have to be aware of that. And that's being aware of other people and how you can help them. And people often say, well, how do you like to work? I say, the way you like to work. If a DP says, I like to work this way, then that's your function, is to make that, to fit into that position as best you can and bring your experience to bear in that environment. Some other directors and the DP say, well, I want you to get all the setups, and I want you more involved. And then that's, you have to be able to do that too. But I don't know that you have, just one way to do it. I think you have to find your space in every picture with what all the personalities are there, especially with the director and the DP.
So I guess what you're saying is every picture, every project you work on is very different, and all the dynamics are different. So every single time you come to the show, you've got to figure that all out and figure out where you.
It's different. They're different for everybody. It's not just you. It's different for the director. It's different for the DP. It's different for the actors, because they have a whole crew there. Some of the common things for us, we might pick our focus point, our grips, so we have certain kind of familiarity. But for some actors, from directors, may not have worked with it before, so that's, for them, it's a whole process too. They're getting to know you as well. But there must be some, final arbiter of what this is, and you cannot be in the way of that. You can't get in front of that kind of stuff. You have to be there to find out what it is that helps this person, tell their story, and then that's the skill, is finding out what it is. Doesn't get in the way of stuff rather than assist, even though you might think you might be helping. You have to understand their sensibilities and adjust yours to theirs rather than the way around.
Just wondering how this came to me. Do you like to, is it preferable to be involved in the process from a very early time in the picture, talk about really
yeah, I mean, it's a story, so I mean, you have to know the story. There are situations sometimes when you're on the camera and you're thinking, which way do you go? Well, the story should drive that. Whose story is this? What's the scene about? So you have to know all those things. And every story has a twist and turn and little pivot points. And I think you have to know what they are too. And the more time you spend with the director and the DP, the more you get to understand the story. Because by the time if you get no prep, by the time you get there, these people have been talking about this story for months, and they're talking nuances about something, or scheduling nuance, and you're kind of just, it's all going over your head. You've no idea what they're talking about. And then they give different names to things and abbreviate something, so it means nothing to the script. You've no idea what they're talking about. So the sooner you get in there, the more you can absorb it all. I think the better you can help them. Absolutely.
I just want to check with it.
It's not just for me, but for everybody. I mean, recently someone, a folks player, didn't get a script, and the group didn't get a script. I was thinking, I find that a very bizarre situation, that they don't even know the story. They're just kind of regarded as people who do a certain function with no understanding, or there's no need for them to understand the story. I don't know how that benefits anybody. I mean, if they're involved in the story, they can watch it unfold, and they're much more involved in it, and they can make it their own, and they get involved in the story. I think that's better for everybody. I don't understand why they're not allowed to have a script. So by extension, the more I understand the script, the more I understand the story, or what the director or the DP want to do, because they've been talking for a very long time, months perhaps. And when you come in there, it's not like you have, the most important job. You don't, but it has, sometimes it can be quite pivotal. So I think the more you know, the less fuck ups you'll have. Put it that way.
Can I just check something with anyone who's on the webinar, just to check that sound is all right? I'm just type in the chat if you can hear Des all right. I'm sort of up and down. I'm hearing a bit of no one's on the volume control as the sound recorders, you see. But I think we're all good. No one said anything, so we're fine. Everyone's just already asleep. Maybe we put them to sleep, Des, already.
Got a bit. Yeah.
Oh, Guillermo Moreno says it's good. Okay, so that's good. We like that.
Okay.
I want to pitch a scenario to you, Des. I'm sure you've been through this, and many operators have been, and not necessarily operators. I think it's not role specific, but okay, say you're faced with a challenge, whether it's a shot or a move, or a scene, whatever it is, and you hear it, you hear the idea behind it, and your spider sense is going off the scale, in terms of this isn't going to work in some way.
You're hearing the director talk about it, or you're overhearing this,
I think you're involved in it. This is being pitched to you, as an operator, and what's been pitched by the adults is not going to, it's some way not going to work. Do you have a particular approach for mitigating that?
Yeah,
you don't want to be the no guy. You don't want to be negative about it.
No, I think that's really important not to be negative, and it depends on when that happens in the film. But it happens early on, before you get to have a relationship with, say, your first time director or first time DP. Now, I've been kind of lucky that I haven't had this experience massively, but I think if it happens early on, I think you just kind of roll with it, and you don't kind of brush up against and go head to head. I think that's a bad thing. I think later on, depending on your relationship and how it develops, you'll be able to have more room to have that discussion in a more kind of honest way. People have egos and they feel threatened by someone who's saying no all the time. So my approach is, whenever it is, if you go into a room and you're watching something and you're about the rehearsal and you're saying, I think we're in the wrong place. I think we should be, just for argument's sake, we should be on the other side, the whole 180-degree opposite of where we're standing. But the director's standing there with the finder. You don't go over the other side and challenge them to get some sort of contest or throw the gauntlet down. That's obviously a crazy thing to do. So there's variations of that would be, that's okay. And if you think it's not going to work, you kind of tease it out and you ask kind of a series of questions that hopefully they will begin to see that maybe this is too much too much bother. It's like an equation. I mean, what do we get out of this? If it causes this much trouble, it's going to take this much time to do, and it's this complicated, and we get this in return. Is that a good return? Or if we go over there, or we do something else, we can get this much return for very little effort. Is that worth it? Is the time and the energy worth the payoff at the end? But if the director says, no, this is the shot I want, I don't care how complicated it is, and I don't see why you're saying we can't do this. We can do anything on film, and that's becoming more and more true. I think you have to kind of go, okay, I'll do my very best to see, can I make this work? And you bring in everybody in and you say, this is what he wants to do. And they say, well, this is going to take forever. I said, well, that's what he said. And then it's your job and your duty to carry that through. And, if it doesn't work, I told you so doesn't help anybody. It certainly doesn't help your relationship with the director and the DP. Hopefully that, you're behaving professionally all the time, that you tried something, it didn't work, and the next time that situation comes up where something comes up which you think is not going to work, but they might have more time for your opinion on it than they had before. But the timing of it is really important. I think if it's early on the film, I think you got to be very careful about how you deal with the personalities, because that's what you're dealing with, is personalities. I mean, people often will try and win the battle on the day rather than do what's best for what's on the screen. But as an operator, I think we always have to think about what we think is better for the screen. And winning a battle, there's no battle to be won. I mean, it's just there is no battle. There's no point in it. You should always, my opinion is that you should always think about what is really, a great shot here. And if I don't think it's a good shot, then I'm not going to be able to sell it to anybody. But my suggestions aren't commands. They're just that, suggestions. If they're ignored and thrown away, that's fine. I'll move on to the next one, and hopefully, we'll get a kind of working relationship which works for everybody. And that's more important than operating the camera, because operating the camera is, it's not that difficult. It really is how you make your point and how you work as a collaborator, with given the space you're allowed. given or invited to take the space. You're invited to a space, and how you use that space is up to you. Sometimes you're not invited. Sometimes you're just told exactly what to do, and then your job is to carry that out perfectly, efficiently, as best you can.
Well, that was my next question, actually. If you find yourself in that situation where you're no longer invited to make suggestions for whatever reason,
Yeah.
you find that a demoralizing place to be, or is it a different?
No. I mean, I've worked with a lot of DPs who are really, and their ideas are fantastic. Our directors' ideas are fantastic, and they have it all worked out. And I really enjoy that, because I'm looking at someone who's really thought about this. And you might say, well, what about this? I've thought about that. And they say, okay, well, what about if we do? Yeah, I've thought about that too. So you feel in really safe hands. You feel like this director, man or woman, has really thought about this, and they've a real reason to be here. And so I have great respect for that. That's someone who's really done their homework, and I'm thrilled that this is it's a well thought out option. That it's not arbitrary. It makes sense to them. It's been in their mind since they read the script, and they have a whole handle on this whole story visually, and they have a cinematic language which they want to use, and I have to learn that language or get into it. And I love that. I think that's fantastic. So I always feel really safe. And then my job is to execute that command as best I can, in the most elegant way and the most efficient way. And that's a challenge too. But I feel energized by that. What I find odd sometimes, a lot of very young directors who come from other business, especially television, not that I do a huge amount of TV, is that they try to make a stamp, and not for that's better for the film, but just on the floor. They're trying to win an argument on the floor with a handful of people. You're thinking, aren't you thinking about the film? And sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just, and their ego get in the way. And that's the thing you have to avoid all the time. I'm not saying I'm successful all the time, but I try my best not to do that, because it serves no purpose. It's a destructive purpose, and it doesn't advance anything.
You preempted my next question as well. I don't know. This is so, simpatico here, but this is maybe a tricky one. What's more important in
reminded?
Yeah. What's more important, do you think? Managing your own ego or managing everyone else's ego on set?
I think managing your own first. I mean, I think you have to, and that goes with your crew. I mean, like I say sometimes to reps and say, if you have an idea about something, don't tell me, on take 5, well, you should have done that. And well, that's not use. And say it up front, and I'll say, well, Julian had a great idea, or Gary had a great idea. What do you think about this? So it's not just always me, but because it is a team effort, and I think the more you make people part of it and give them ownership of something, the more enjoyable it's going to be. I mean, it's enjoyable for me to be part of it, that kind of to be invited there. So why wouldn't it be true for them as well?
It's fair to say, in this industry, you come across some sometimes challenging personalities. I'm guessing there's no magical formula for managing tricky customers. Are
you referring to crew or cast?
Well, I was going to say, dare I say, actors that are perhaps a little bit as well. I mean, I know there's no book on, oh, here you go, how to deal with them. But do you have a particular approach to maybe say with actors?
It's an argument you're never going to win. You're just never going to win that argument. If it is what an argument is probably the wrong terminology, but you assume, I mean, I do, that everyone's trying to do their professional job. Everyone's there to do a job, and they're getting paid to do a professional job. They come on the floor with that in mind. You're professional, so you must treat people with all that courtesy that comes with that. I mean, we've all known difficult actors, but you just have to suck that up. What I do believe is that they can call you, hey, you're the worst operator I've ever worked with in my life, and you think, well, okay, might be the worst operator I've ever worked with. If they get personal, if it becomes a personal thing, or they become threatening, that's a line from me. There's no place that you should be threatened physically, or that someone enjoys. I mean, I've seen, not with me, I've seen actors, it's always just somebody that they know they can do something with. I find that's crossed the line there. You can have a professional point of view of somebody, and it may or may not be justified, but once you get personal, I think that's in any environment that would be unacceptable. And the fact that you're an actor or someone else doesn't exempt you from that. That principle. I think once you get personal, I think then you've lost all professionalism.
How about inexperienced actors? What's your methodology with them? Do you carefully?
It's funny because talking the other day, someone mentioned that to me. We had an actor on something, a young actor on the Tudors, as a TV show I did in Ireland, and he was playing the piano or the organ. The camera was quite close to his face, and he said to me, "I'm sorry," he said, "that camera's really it's right in my eye line." He said, "Does it have to be there?" And I jokingly said, "Well, no." I said, "We can put it on the truck." He said, "Would you mind?" I said, "Not at all." I thought, put in the truck, and then you can go home, and then we can all go home, because there's no point in you being here, really. You play this organ all you like, but no one's ever going to see it. He says, "I don't know what you mean, because this is your audience. This little black square that's in your way is 60 million people looking at you. So if you don't want them to looking at you, then just don't show up." That's what my advice. I mean, you can't say that. We were joking, and it was kind of banter. But inexperienced actors, yeah, most of them, I have to say, maybe I've been lucky. They've been just great. They're very helpful for your advice as an operator, and giving them tips on standing up, turning, finding this particular angle, how to find the camera, not to give them. I tend not to give them too many kind of mechanical notes, because they can get wrapped up in it. They can put that in front of their performance, and then you're getting into the director's way by giving them too many mechanical things to make your life easy. Just do something that gets rid of all the mechanical things if the performance is great. That's, in my opinion, to be professional too. It's not about the camera necessarily. It's about the performance, and then you're trying to capture that somewhere. But if you give them too many marks on the floor, too many eye lines, and especially if there's like on Fantastic Beasts, where you have a huge amount of non-people to look at, or moving eye lines that aren't there, like animated monsters which don't exist, and if they have, a lot of people don't have any visual sense or spatial awareness, and they find it very difficult to visualize something that's just not there. Not everyone can see that, and sometimes you forget that not everyone has that ability, and because you have it doesn't mean that everyone automatically has that. So they have to make that really simple. What actually works, what doesn't take away from, so allows them to perform without worrying about the stuff that you're telling them, all the mechanical things. That's to be avoided at all costs, I think. Some actors, they love an eye line that's very, very precise, and then you say, okay, well, I can do that too. I can give you a very precise eye line if that helps your performance or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it depends, but I think you have to be ultra aware of that they're not experienced, and the world for them is not the world that you see and that you take for granted. For them, it's all very brand new. They come from theater, particularly. It's all a very kind of strange, staccato thing, stop start, that they find quite difficult and frustrating, I guess.
Yeah.
You don't add to the frustration.
On the flip side of it, Des, do you enjoy working with an experienced actor who is almost completely across the practical side of things, the technical aspect?
Absolutely. I mean, they make you look great. They just have a great sense of camera, and you really feel that they kind of almost read your mind. They're standing up, they're little bananas. They get it straight away. They push other actors into places where they need to be. They find the camera all the time. And they make you look great, and also they understand the value of you giving them little technical notes. They get it, and so it's all kind of shorthand. And so it makes your life an awful lot easier when you have great actors, technical actors on the floor. Absolutely.
Any good examples? Are you going to dish the dirt or no?
Johnny Depp's going through his stuff at the moment, but Johnny's fantastically technical, and he can't do enough. He's always referring to you all the time, and if he moves his mark, he's going to come back and tell you that he's moved a mark. He's very aware that you're there. As I say to one actor, we're not here to make you look bad, and any suggestions we give you aren't to embarrass you or to make you look bad. They're they're there to enhance you, and we're trying to make you look as great as we possibly can. Or so, you know, it's not that we're trying to make our life easy. We're not. We're trying to make things work for you, or, you know, or from the director, you know, this is what he wants. So, and we both work for him. So, you know, it's not like, you know, it's my will over yours. Or they feel that you're trying to make them look worse than they are. And sometimes you might do something that might make their lives mechanically easier, some technical thing that might make their life easier, you know. You know, by moving somebody out of the way, or, you know, so you're aware of their space and you're trying to help, you know, there's too many marks on the floor, or, you know, let's clear the floor of the previous mark. So it's all very, you know, it's unambiguous where they have to go. And, you know, making them aware that you're there for them is really important too. So they feel safe. So when you make a note, they kind of go, oh, okay, that's, you know, that's good, because I feel absolutely secure that this note is from my benefit. But, you know, most actors who have been, in my experience, technically very good.
I think just thinking on the subject of actors, and as you said, we're only ever trying to do the right thing to enhance the performance and make everything better. I think I accidentally put actors in an uncomfortable position once, perhaps by, I think I had a 2-shot and I squeezed them a bit too close together to make it work for a particular shot or a lens. And they made that clear to me, and it was a good lesson, because it was like, you know, think about proximity, because the scene feels different immediately for them if they're closer or further apart.
Yes, yeah.
You know,
well, you've often heard this. They say, this feels weird. Does it look good for you? I mean, I've heard that, and you say, yeah, I know it feels weird, but it looks good. And so often they'll, if they're not very experienced and are young actors, they'll do the shot and then run over to the monitor just to see, you know, to confirm or you know, their suspicions either way, and they say, oh yeah, actually it looks really good, you know. And that's a good thing, because then they start to trust you that you're making good calls for how they look on the screen, because, you know, they can't possibly know that they're in a different spatial place. You're looking at the confined space of the screen where everything happens. They're in the space of the set. You know, they're not in that space. They're not in that confined space. That kind of limited.
And the headspace.
Yeah, but I mean, the actual space. I mean, the actual frame you're putting in. That's your world. So that's all you're, as an operator, you see, and that's all you want to see. You don't care about the set, insofar as it has no bearing on what you're framing up. For the actor, the set is, for them, is 3-dimensional. It's not confined to the thing that you see. So their relationship with things and other actors is a different spatial experience for them as it is for you. And until you show them on the camera that this is the space, the parameters are working, and they're going to go, oh yeah, oh, I get it now. So, you know, that's good. You invite them, say, well, have a look. Let's go and have a look afterwards. And they say, great, that's great. You know, I get it now. But most, you know, kind of experienced actors kind of know that you do things kind of prospectively that look odd, that work for camera, that feel odd for them. You know, I mean, it's
that relationship for an actor in 3D space is true, isn't it? Of when we cheat and when we make different angles work. Obviously, then that relationship's maybe different for their eye line to a door or whatever. And that's check, isn't it? They say, oh, is that angle still look all right for the door or whatever?
It's interesting, because we had this thing where we were on this set, and we walked around the set for about 3 days, and we were absorbing, and we were walking around like in real time and in real virtual space, and absorbing it all and getting the feeling of it all. And then you go to shoot it, and then as you're shooting, you realize we're not capturing this space with the shots we're getting. You know, we're not telling the audience the things that we see visually. So, and often if you have a director who's not from cinema, from theater, they kind of get wrapped up in the performance sometimes, and they forget maybe to put that piece of performance in a space that tells you more than anything else, like in a shot. So that can be something that you have to be aware of too, that you forget that you have all the information on the set, but the audience don't. You know, so that's information you have to tell them, even though you know it backwards, and it may seem boring, but you haven't told them that piece of information yet, because the camera hasn't showed it to them. You know, the camera does what you want it to do. I remember one director, his great line was, you know, what does the camera see? Whatever. What do you mean what does it see? Well, what's it telling the person you're trying to tell? What what do you tell you? Why is one background better than another background? Why is one lens more preferable than another lens? The background and everything is, I think is as important, even in close-ups. What do you want to tell? There's information to be told in every frame. So how you max that out and how you propel the story or move it along by just changing the background, it can make the difference. And being aware of that all the time, constantly, not out of continuity, but picking a location that eventually gets you to experience the location you're in and where the scene takes place, without just doing the classical wide shot, which is the usual thing to get you out of jail and then covering it. You can't do that in everything. I mean, you may want to do that, but you might think of some other ways of doing that. Ed, I can't hear you.
I better unmute myself. That will help. Sorry. Yeah, so if that was fascinating stuff there, Des. I wonder if I can move on to a different subject and another skill of operating a camera. And we're talking about this role, camera operator. I think we spoke about the other night, saying maybe that's not the right term anymore. We should change it to something else. But we can get back to that. But
it's a good term because it's primarily that, and you work with DPs who just give you instructions, and then you're just doing that. So if it's more than that, then that's great. But fundamentally, that's basically the primary function. It's like the old British term of lighting cameraman. So you had they used to light, and that was it. So that it was quite descriptive. And then director of photography became a whole other thing. Not every cameraman is a director of photography. So some of them don't want to get involved, and they're happy. So, but it's a term that covers everything, and I think it's a perfect job description.
Another skill within camera operating is obviously crew management, team management. How important do you think is that, and is it overlooked at all in terms of you're the
well, my thing is that I like to use the same people as often as I can. So you find someone who's really good at focus, that never becomes an issue. So it's not. I don't have to worry about it. That's going to be someone that's going to do all that, has to look at all the technical side, so I don't have to worry about it. And then you have to find someone that you kind of get on with. That's your personal relationship with. That doesn't add to any of the other tensions that may or may not exist. So that's really important. So sometimes if you go to another country and you get someone who's not very good, like particularly focus, and focus is not just about keeping it sharp. It can make the shot work from your point of view as an operator or not. Like the timing of a head turn or sliding from one person to another as you pan, that timing is crucial because it looks like bad operating as well. If the timing is wrong, if you go too early or too soon, or the Zen art of focus, as I call it, because kind of zenning things. There's a kind of keeping it sharp, and then there's pulling focus. For me, they're two very different things. And I've been lucky that some of the people I work with are really just brilliant. That they're real Zen, and there's a real art to it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And they make decisions which are based upon their knowledge of the script, and also they can get quite inventive with it. And I think that's great. So having a crew that you rely on, I think is so important. It cuts across all sorts of nonsense or potential landmines you can stand on. So I tend to kind of want to hire people that I know that I wouldn't fire, because they're good, and so I'm not going to question their ability, in terms of what they do. So you should start from that premise rather than any other factor. No other political box fixing exercises. You pick someone who's really good at their job, and why wouldn't you do that? That makes sense to me. If someone's really good at their job, then they should absolutely be afforded the chance to work. And the same with grips, and you assume the same for you. I mean, someone picks you because they think you're very good, or they get on with you, and you assume that, not because of any other reason. And that's being professional. That's the professional approach you should always have. That should be the foremost thing in your mind. Is even if I didn't quite, they weren't like bosom pals. We had different tastes in music or different politics. I wouldn't care anything about that once they were really good at what they do, rather than having someone that I really liked that wasn't very good. Because if I really liked them, I wouldn't hire them because I wouldn't want to fall out with them, because for me, going out there, getting a job done supersedes all the other relationships. You just have to get someone who knows what they're doing. And then, by definition, if they're very good at what they do and you have respect for them, you'll get to like them because they're very good at what they do and you'll respect their ability. You're gone, Ed. You're
got to kind of stop doing that. Yeah, I'm just fascinated with this idea of likability. And do you think it's easier for people who are likable to get on into film and TV because they're a likable character?
Yeah, but that's not just in film and TV. That's in every walk of life. That's the human condition. Someone that you like. I mean, you don't have to like everybody, but you might admire them. You might admire what they do. Like some directors they might be kind of difficult personalities. They're not very communicative, but they're brilliant at what they do. I would find that really intriguing, and I'd be really into them. I find them fascinating when they I have great respect for directors. The real authors, the ones who really know what they're doing. I find what they do always kind of interesting when how they approach the scene. I may not like them. They might be Trump supporters, or there might be something else, and I may not have an awful lot of time for them socially. There wouldn't be someone that I would, nor they with me either. They probably say, I don't particularly like this guy, but he's good at what he does, but I can respect what they do because I'm in that very kind of small little pursuit of we're there to make a film, and that's all we're there to do. We're not camping. We're not, so and if they're really good at what that at their craft, I find that quite endearing, and I begin to like them for what they do rather than what they say. And so I have an awful lot of tolerance for that. It's when someone is not very good and they're difficult, and then you think, well, I've nothing here that I admire. There's nothing that about this person that's either professional or they're grating or whatever it is, and they're not very good at what they do. Then I think you're in trouble. So you try to avoid that by making sure you surround yourself with people that won't go down that way. So they're your focus puller, your grip, hopefully, and then a lot of those issues are solved by making those decisions early.
In terms of, I'm sort of sticking with the crew management theme, Des. How important do you think it is as an operator to be responsible for your team? That sort of level of responsibility is important, isn't it?
Oh no, completely. I think they have to feel safe. I mean, if you're the one that's in controlling of carrying out the instructions from the director and the DP, and then you bring that to the rest of the crew, especially your grips. I think if you're given that responsibility, then you have to take all the responsibility. If you're given that power, then you take all the responsibility. There's no way you can fob it off. I mean, if sometimes the shot might be difficult for the guy in the pickle on a crane because it's geometrically difficult, and then next time it's very difficult guy on the bucket because he's got to do a fast swing or whatever it might be, or it might be very difficult. Excuse me, for the focus. I've had focus issues where halfway through the shot there's one part of it that's really complicated, and you anticipate this could be an issue, and sometimes it is, and so but you can't keep saying we're going to go again for a focus. What was the problem? Well, we had it's the focus puller, so you're kind of putting them out in the rack because one day it'll be difficult for me. There might be part of the shot, which is the whole shot could be very difficult. And so, if you mind each other and you're there and you're making sure that everyone's looking after everybody else, then you feel safe. So making mistakes is not a big thing. Like if it's a focus issue, I'd say, well, I can do better. Let's go again. What was the issue? We had an issue with, and do we go out of focus there? He said, yeah, but that wasn't the problem. So I can take that hit because I know that I can, because I have a relationship with the director and the DP that maybe someone else doesn't. A lot of the grips on the back don't have that relationship. And so if they feel that you're kind of, taking responsibility for, and then going to solve that problem, trying to make it easier. What can we do to make that situation much more achievable? Is there something that we can, do, eliminate something, or can I do something that may put the camera in a position? And then you kind of work it out, and then you solve the problem. So if they feel in that environment that they're safe, I think that's a very good thing. It's a healthy thing. And if I feel that they're doing the same for me, then I'll feel very safe. If I find a shot that's very difficult and the group says, oh, I can do better on that. And he might say, I'll tell you what, if I do that, then you have to do this, and then it'll make your life easier. So that everyone's watching out for, potentially solving the problem that exists for everybody. It's not just your problem anymore. It's a crew problem. And I think that's the essence of a crew. I think that's to be encouraged. And that's a great work environment.
You touched on there at the end about having foresight and sort of thinking ahead. Is there an element of organisation about thinking what's the next shot that we need to get ready for?
Well, I think I don't know. I mean, Fantastic Beasts was a good example of it, because a lot of the shots are very complicated crane shots with a lot of animation in it. I came from an animation background. I was an animator, so I understand that not everyone can see everything that you see, and maybe they haven't been privy to a lot of the previs, as I say, they probably didn't get a script, so you have to be aware that maybe they don't understand. So getting them to see the shot in their head before they start. I mean, just seeing the shot, trying to explain what the shot is, how it's going to look on the big screen before you even get to working out the shot on the crane. So they kind of, oh yeah, and then we come back and we see him big, and then we push across here, and this is going to be the shot. And I mean, I'll take the finder and walk around with the group saying, so we want to end up here, and this is it. So they kind of, and they stitch these points together. So it's not just mechanical A to B, going from A to B through a waypoint to get to like 4 or 5 marks. They see it as one continuous shot, and until they see that in their head, you're always fighting fires. You're always fighting, point to point, where you're not seeing the shot as a whole thing. Because often you can get away with something in the middle. If the shot works, you can, that works great. That's fine. We didn't get there, but that's not crucial. That's crucial. And so kind of getting that in your head is, or if someone has trouble not seeing the shot, and that's not just camera crew, that can be ADs, or that can be a lot of people who don't see the shot. I think that's, an absolute must. And once they see it in their head, then it's easier for them to execute, because they have a feeling for the shape of it. There's the kind of shape they see, rather than, a mechanical A to B thing. It's a camera going through mid-air somewhere in some unspecified point in space that they have to and the relation between that and the actor, rather than hitting a mark, is much more important to me in terms of the shot. The mark is relevant, but if the actor moves, then that mark means nothing. So when you have a reference point to something, keeping the map box in relation to something, then it's easy for them to visualize, because they can see the corner of it all, rather than, if it was just mechanical, we could probably get a machine to do it. And that, to me, takes all the kind of, the serendipity away and all the joy of it. So yeah, then there's that. Seeing the next shot, seeing other shots. A lot of young directors don't often think about the reverse and what the background might be in a reverse, or, getting into a corner where you end up in trouble. Seeing, the potential shots ahead is really, really important. If you can predict what the next shots are going to be, if just, so like if there's going to be a reverse, what's the background of that reverse? Is this, we better off doing this so we get this background, or, that they're all worthwhile things. That comes from just kind of anticipating, a problem down the line.
You mentioned your relationship with the AD department there. Can you describe that for people maybe starting out as an operator? How to improve that relationship with the ADs? Yeah,
like background action is often thought as, even the word background action has a kind of like, a dismissive thing. Oh, it's just background action, or, but background action can kill you. Like some guy not doing something or not being convincing can suddenly take your eye away from some performance. I mean, Tim Burton has a real thing about background action. And he gets tied up with it somewhere. He has a kind of thing about background action. So ADs you know, understanding that background action matters, and not wasting it on time and energy and stuff that's not in shot, and you know, stuff like that. Focusing on what the camera sees. I mean, you know, there's no excuse today when there's so many monitors around, but the amount of times I get ADs who are dressing things off camera or organizing background action which is not even in shot, I find that extraordinary. I mean, there's no excuse for them not to know what the shot is. You know, even if it's a big crane shot, you know, you still have their left and right parameters. You know, the left of frame is always going to be the extreme left of frame, the right of frame is always going to be, and those between those 2 points is where the action happens. So there's no point in doing action that doesn't happen between those 2 extreme points. So that's really important. And having a relationship with your first is really, really important. You know, they make everything. They're the kind of, you know, lubricant on the floor that makes everything happen. You know, the timing, everything, when you can do a rehearsal, you know, when it's your time, when it's the Sparks time, when it's, you know, hair and makeup, you're not swamped with, you know, hair and makeup running in there with wigs all the time, you're not getting a rehearsal. How they handle the stand-ins, you know, they make everyone's life, you know, structured. You know, and that's really important, that structure is maintained. So everyone doesn't panic and they know they're going to get the time because he's told them they're going to get the time. And he also understands what the issues are in terms of when you do a take and he says, oh, I'll fix that for you. Oh, that car came too soon, or, you know, he turned too late. And if they're finishing your sentences, if you're saying, that car came too late, I'll fix that. He turned too soon, I'll fix that too. You know, you're in great hands because they see what you see and they see the timing. And they get all that. So you can kind of go, well, I don't have to explain the car. I don't have to explain the guy turning too soon. They just saw it. And I have to say, England's full of fantastic first stages. Probably the best in the world, in my opinion.
Couldn't help but escape my attention. I obviously knew this already, but you've had the pleasure of working with Tim Burton, the legendary Tim Burton, on a number of pictures. I'm sure a lot of people would like to know what kind of a director he is on the floor. You'd like to work with.
Well, he's the nicest man, first of all, which is, you know, and he's intensely likable. But he's also a great artist. He won't give you I mean, he's an animator, and you know, animators don't draw coverage. They don't draw over shoulders and lots of stuff. They tell the story quite leanly. They draw what the picture that tells the maximum story possible, and getting Tim to do coverage is, you know, is quite difficult. But we say, I'm going to cut in that word. I don't need any close up there. No, I'm not going to do close up there. He doesn't look at the scene, looks at the picture completely. He looks at the entire picture as one piece. And so, and all these things he does are little parts of the jigsaw, and you could almost take off the clapperboards and stick it all together with Tim. He doesn't spill over. Like, and it's usually one camera show. He doesn't even like the B camera because he can't look at 2 screens. But he'll often, in the middle of a complicated scene, he'll have an image in his head. Somewhere in the middle of that scene will be a shot he wants to do, and that's the one he'll show you. He'll say, like, this is a great shot. I love this shot here. And he say, yeah, so great. And so we rehearse. But that's the only shot he's actually looked at the Finder and, you know, kind of giving you instruction, and everything either side of that is up for grabs. So you kind of say, well, you know, we get to that shot if we go this, and we can get out the other side by going there and there. And so you can, or you might do it in one shot. He kind of likes that too. He likes if it's not overindulgent and it tells the story efficiently, he'll go for that. He's not someone that likes loads of coverage and loads of options. He likes elegance and simplicity, and he's an absolute joy to work with, I have to say. And he's wonderful time for DPs. That's Bruno de Vanel in the background there. He's wonderful time for DPs, and he really respects the craft, and he'll take on board anything that they need to do in terms of being at the location at the right time, making sure the weather's right. He won't do it if the DP's not happy. He's a great collaborator. You know, he just has a way of inviting you into that world and making you feel part of it, and he really enjoys you participating in it.
When you reach that level of collaboration with a director, you got director-operator relationship like you have, and I've experienced it myself. Is that, how do you navigate that situation where you're brought on by the director and then you've got a DP coming in, and you know you want to establish a good relationship with both?
Yeah, well, I mean that's we were back to what I was saying earlier. It's not yours to keep. It's yours to be invited into, and that's great. So I mean, uh, if that's a problem for you, you're always going to be in trouble because every film has a different personality, not just in terms of mechanical things or things to overcome. There's all these personalities, and often if a DP hires a DOP, he likes his work, and there's some tangible reason why he's hired this person, and they'll have met for months before you meet them. So that relationship is quite a special relationship. They're the kind of collaborators. So I think you just have to kind of find a place where I can help that relationship. I mean, it might be in Tim's case where we've had 4 or 5 different DPs, and I was the constant there. That most DPs are very generous, and they said, no, that's a relationship that we understand, and that's fine. But the reverse is also true. I mean, you have to walk in there and say, well, these people work together, and I have to find a place that doesn't step on anyone's toes, and I'll try and make myself as useful as possible and try and help in any way I can. And if I have a suggestion, they can take it or leave it. I don't care. I'm not going to be upset by it all. And if they do, that's great. If they don't, that's fine. And if at some point they invite you more in because you build a relationship, that's wonderful, but it's not absolutely necessary.
Well, I wonder if anyone has any other questions for Des. Throw them in. It can be related to anything, operating, or anything particular Des has worked on or who he's worked with. Go for it. We had something on Facebook from Kieran Kavanagh, who said, great chat, Des Whelan, wonderful operator. So that's from Kieran, which is always nice to hear. I wanted to, if possible, speak a little bit about Fury. Great film. Congratulations on it. And this is going back a few years, really enjoyed it. And I think technically achieving it was obviously quite challenging, as I understand it. I wonder if you could take us through getting involved in the project and sort of how you navigated through.
Yeah. Well, I never met the DP. He's a young Roman, a Russian cameraman called Roman Yazanov, super guy. And the director was a guy called David Ayres, who's an ex-military guy. And they'd worked together on some other pictures, so they were very close. And Kevin Fraser was the grip. So the first thing we decided that we would get there was how we're going to shoot, all these tanks, because they generate an enormous amount of vibration. So you couldn't really lock something onto the body of the tank without just losing your. And we were shooting on film, so we tested, Kevin and I, for about a week, looking at the head that we could dial in the amount of vibration that we wanted or didn't want, because if it was too smooth, it looked like it was green screen. It looked too perfect, and it was kind of a little ludicrous. So you wanted to feel the sense that you're on the tank, but you didn't want to be kind of ridiculously camera violently moving around. So somewhere between all those, and every lens had a different level of vibration. So it took a long time for us to find the head and the system to use. We had our process tank, which had platforms around it, which we put a small arm on, the 20-foot hydroscope, not to move the camera around the tank so much because it looked like it was green screen, but to find the camera position, then Kevin would lock it off, and then the head would take the vibration that we dialed into it, taking it all away or taking some of it away. And so that's how we executed all around the tank. We never moved the camera from the top to the bottom. There's the process tank there, but we just lock off the camera. But we'd find it with the telescopic arm. And
just worth mentioning at this point, these pictures provided by Jamie Harcourt, who worked on some second unit, I think, stuff on the picture. So this is the tank, the process tank. And so you would mount the remote head on an arm here.
Yeah, a crane base, and we had a remote head, and we would find the shot using the crane, and then Kevin would brace it off to the main body of the tank somewhere, and then the head would take out the vibration that it was a huge vibration. It was quite tiring at the end of the day because the noise level was huge, and an awful lot of safety things around a tank because they're extremely dangerous to work around. Oh yeah, this is the Julie, which is proved to be an amazingly efficient little machine. The half-track wheels, wherever we went, by lunchtime, whatever field we were in was like a sea of mud, and so getting around was quite difficult, getting access to the thing. But this little thing proved to be fantastically valuable. It would, you could get anywhere with it. Now you couldn't track hugely fast with it, but you could track with it. But it was getting there was half the battle most of the time. I mean, it was February. It was intensely cold, and the mud was frozen sometimes. And yeah, there it's a better picture of it. That proved to be an extraordinary valuable thing. We had a Russian arm as well, but obviously in those kind of conditions, you couldn't travel at high speeds. But tanks don't go that quickly. I mean, they're quite slow. So this is I'd never seen this before. So Kevin brought this out. It was fantastically a great idea. Loved it.
And did you predominantly work off remote heads, or was there other setups?
We shot in film. It was quite classical. Roman's quite, he's a very young guy, but he loves that kind of classical look. And we had, lens we didn't use, and we shot mainly on the 40mm and the 50 anamorphic. But we shot mainly off the crane, yeah. And the guys were fantastic. The first week was all at the beginning of the movie. We shot, first week with 5 actors around the tank, and every take they did was completely different. They just never did the same thing. And so on the crane, we could just make it up as we went along, and I'd be talking with the guys through the headsets, and finding someone speaking. If you knew someone in the background was going to speak, we'd slide right to catch them. So they would know the script, and we had great fun. And I felt that the Grips, it was their show. They did a fantastic job on this. It was just
how fun is it, or I guess not fun, but when you're working like that in an organic way, and you're going with the script, you're going with the lines, is that quite an energizing process rather than?
Yeah, I think first of all you have to know the script very well, because if you're going to, especially if there are 5 people moving around, and there isn't a shot there, but you're making it up because the actors have been told, "I just go out and just do your thing," and the camera will just kind of follow you around. You think, well, that all sounds good, but what is? Are we just capturing the dialogue, or is there some cinematic thing here? And so we never use it as all one shot, of course. You just pick the bits you want, but we were nailing that after the second day. Shia LaBeouf wouldn't even hit a mark. He didn't even know about marks, and we had Brad Pitt, who was superb. Like he was definitely aware of camera, and was definitely.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, he's great. So you do your best, but everyone has to know that you may or may not get some fantastic things, and serendipity is one of the things that can always get you what you want, unless if you want a specific shot, then you have to plan that job. Then everyone has to be on board. But if you say, "Oh, I'm just going to wing it," and then that's what you're doing. You're winging it. You're busking it. And, depending on luck, a lot of the time, and anticipating what might happen next is decides if it's a good or bad job.
So take us through the interior setup for the tank.
We built the interior tank we built a stage on the location, because we shot in February, and weather was, as you can imagine, not very reliable. And anyway, the day, it was all set in daylight except for the last final scene, which takes part at night. So our shooting days were very short. So we built the tank inside the stage. Our stage was kind of canvas covered place, and it was every panel. You could take all these panels to get the camera in there, so all these panels could come away, and we had all these LED lighting all hidden away, and we shot all the interior stuff in the tank in there under control conditions. So it was basically our weather cover. We jump in there. There wasn't much weather cover, so yeah, we spent a lot of time in this little set, sticking cameras into corners and finding little apertures to put the lens in there. And it gave a great sense of claustrophobia. It was like shooting a submarine. It was the same kind of thing. I think we achieved that really well. Considering it was a third bigger than the original tank, just to facilitate us. But
you were telling me earlier about the film magazine selection.
Yeah, I mean, to get a camera into some tight places, we put the 200-foot mag on. which was great. But then, you had to take the camera out, reload, and it took a long time because getting the camera in was such a labored thing. It was, we tried to avoid the 200-foot mag, so actors could have 1 or 2 takes rather than just getting 1 take and then spending 10 minutes taking the camera out. You could argue maybe digital would have been more efficient there, but I think it looks great on film. So,
oh, absolutely does. Fantastic looking film. In fact, I'm going to show some stills real quick here. In no particular order, just as I went along. Maybe if there's anything that pops up, Des, that you think worth mentioning, then do it.
This is shot off the hydroscope. This is one of our classic shots. See the 3 guys at the top looking back at the tanks in the background. Tracking shots like this were in the same crane arm. We just push in and get those shots. It's better when we didn't move the camera across the tank to find things. It worked better when there were still frames and let the action speak for itself in that kind of classical way. I thought it was a great decision of Romans not to move the camera over the tank, just to keep it static.
Well, actually, I was just thinking about it. I noticed. I think it was earlier on in the.
You wouldn't physically move the arm around the. It did look kind of fake, if you were starting the top hatch and moving down to find someone speaking. It looked too choreographed and it looked too kind of clever, camera clever, rather than just, And also, the editor can decide the timing of when someone comes in to speak, rather than the camera coming in to find someone just on their line. I mean, that's the cut. So if someone's talking off camera, you can let them off camera, or you can cut to them. So that's their decision.
Yeah.
I kind of liked that.
Yeah.
Classical way of not just shooting, classical way of editing as well.
I love this shot actually. It's all interior tank.
This turret moved, just swiveled. So, in that shot, Brad is actually more camera left. He's hidden behind Logan there. So we're focused on Logan, and as the turret moves, Brad slides across the frame into shot.
Great. And what was the location, by the way?
I can't remember. I was up near
all over.
Up near Watford somewhere. I remember in this farmer's field, which I'm sure he wasn't delighted we churned up. Shire, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of intensity in those scenes, in interior tank scenes. I wonder, does it come at the end of the day and you're like, that was a lot, and it's a confined space as well.
Phobic, yeah, and something, it's going to be tragic, from the very beginning, it's going to be tragic here. Yeah, I think Roman was great. His visions were great. He has great language about it.
Yes, absolutely. Classic
kind of 70s, 80s kind of style of filmmaking, which we all grew up at. Well, I did anyway. Yeah, just the opening sequence, which was on a 50-foot hydroscope on 200 feet of track. We started with the course on the horizon. It comes up and then it slides left. We go left across the, debris of a battlefield, and then the fight ensues with Brad jumping off the tank to kill the German officer and freeing the White Horse, which is the opening sequence.
Yeah, very striking images. This is back to the
yeah, great stuff.
Lots of opportunities for lovely pieces of little moments.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. And also, flame and sound plays a huge part in the picture as well. The kind of you close the hatch, and then the entire atmosphere of dialogue and outside noises become very different. So it's like you feel safe in there, but you're not. No, it's great. I thought it was a great movie.
But also hard work, would you say, as well?
Really hard work. I mean, it was extremely difficult for the groups. I take my hat off to them. It was physically, it was an endurance test for everybody. It was raining. It was cold. We had 8 nights of horrible nights of 2 feet of mud everywhere, trying to keep everything. The camera crew are fantastic, keeping things working. As on film, as I say, feeding 3 cameras. I think we were shooting 50, 60,000 feet a day. it was an endurance test. It was real, very physical, and the weather was terrible, and and it was dirty and noisy, But I think people, or really get involved in it, and I think we all knew that it was something that was going to be of some, worth doing. But it was a grip picture, if it's ever such a thing, that was it.
Jamie on the chat, Jamie Harkov says Watlington off Junction 6. He remembered it. Yeah, great. I wanted to also, if possible, just discuss briefly Darkest Hour, which you worked on. Another great picture. I wonder if you could tell us how that came to be, how you got involved with that one.
Yeah, well, I was doing the commuter in Pinewood, and I worked a lot with Bruno Debenel, the DP, who had done something with Joe in America, and he was no, he hadn't. I think he was just starting with Joe, and Joe hired him to do Darkest Hour, and then Bruno asked me to do it, and I was telling him about the stable eye. I was saying you should look at the stable eye thing, because I think this is going to be something you might find quite useful, and so he mentioned to Joe, and Joe said, well, he wanted to have a look at it because he didn't know what it was. And there's Paul Hims there, who proved to be a huge asset. So we were in Pinewood. I said, well, if you come to Pinewood, maybe I'll set up a kind of demonstration on it. And he said, great. So I thought, well, what am I going to show him that he didn't see with Steadicam or on a crane? And the corridor behind the stages in Pinewood, that long corridor that runs behind A and B stage. So I thought, well, if I put the camera very low on the ground and I move across the floor in like inches off the ground, and then a foot comes into foreground walk, we go with the feet and we climb up the body, and then we go a 360 around the body, and then go behind him again and have him walk away. That could be interesting. So I got Joe and Bruno, and I put them in a room with the monitor. I did let them see the stable eye, and Paul wasn't there. I can't remember. It was Joe from Stable Eye, and so we started on the ground, and we started moving across this empty floor, and then the feet come into foreground, and we follow the feet, and we go up along the body, we wrap around the character, and then they walk away. And Joe said, how did you do that? And I said, well, he says, you tell me. He says, Steadicam. I said, well, you can't get that low in a Steadicam. You can't go from that low to that high in Steadicam. And anyway, there's not enough space for the Steadicam operator to be there with the actor. He said, well, is there a crane? I said, no, I'd see the crane, would it? Because it would go 360, where would the base go? So show me what it is. So it's stabilized tiny, and it's it's really small. And he said, wow, that's incredible. He said, I like this thing. And he designed shots for this thing that really put us through our paces. I mean, he just ran away with this visually. He's a very visual director. He loves developing shots. And Paul Hims and Joe, can't remember Joe's second name from Stable Eye. They were just brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Paul is particularly good at operating the Stable Eye. He gets it. So we use the Stable Eye a lot. We use it on the crane, we use it on the dolly, we put it on a wire rig, we put it on the lamp stands, and just wind it up. We could pull the lamp stand with the wheels on. You could tracking shot. It's a remarkable piece of, I think, a game changer for a lot of filmmakers, and it's incredibly versatile. It means that any operator can use this. You don't have to be a Steadicam operator, and you can hand it off to step out of a car, hand it to someone else on a motorbike. It's just infinitely flexible, because we finished shooting the commuter with it on a train. Or if you've seen that movie, New York subway train, and we use it for almost 90% of the film is shot on the Stable Eye. I think it's a fantastic tool, liberating tool.
And when you're using the Stable Eye, what becomes the principal skill there? Is it about communication?
The principal thing, as I was saying to anyone who, because I use it a lot, and so people ring me and say, the principal thing is whoever's holding it, not to operate, not to try and operate it like you operate a camera, but just put the camera in the space where it needs to be, and then then you operate. So they have to physically get in the same spaces where the camera is, and not to operate it, because if they do, they're just going to shake the camera, and you've no idea what they're going to do next. So their function is just to get the camera in a relationship with the piece of action that you're trying to photograph, not to anticipate anything. So Paul used it an awful lot, and so he was wonderful with it. So we'd be on headsets talking, but he'd almost second guess you, so he made you look great. You know?
And Chris McGuire, hi Chris, by the way, says Joe Marston.
Joe Marston, thank you, Chris. And sorry, Joe, I won't forget again.
Not at all. Obviously, I mean, I've got a shot here with Joe Wright, just manhandling a Technicrane. So you had a Technicrane.
Or Joe,
oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. It's just a Scorpio head, possibly on a crane. Let me share it. You'll be able to tell me, Des, probably.
Oh yeah, this is the House of Commons that we were actually going to shoot in for real, and we recce'd it. And so they said, "Oh, you can shoot here, yeah, no problem." We thought, "Wow, really? We can shoot in the House of Commons?" Yeah, because we did a lot of stuff in around the kind of buildings around the House of Commons, and we thought, "Wow, this is incredible. We can actually get, because it's a big set, and almost every location we built." Every location we were in were real, except for Churchill's war room. We had to replicate that in Ealing, but in Elstree rather, in Ealing, sorry. But every other location was real. So there were no sets. So they thought, well, we'll just use the House of Commons, and it's be totally authentic. But when we got there, we said we can go in, but no one can sit down. No one can actually you can't take their seat. So I didn't know this, but this is part of British legal system law, that if you're an MP, only you can sit down on that chair. No one else can take that seat. So they said, "Oh, you can't even sit down." Well, that's not fucking good. So we had to build, the replica of the House of Commons, and that's Joe in there. I think he's just looking at the monitor. Actually, he's
Obvious question alert. What is it like what is it like working with Gary Oldman? To me, is an absolute star.
He was great. He had a huge amount of makeup, so he had a very long day. And I remember that we did some tests. We were kind of hanging around for about 3 or 4 hours, and then in walked Winston Churchill, and it was kind of an eerie thing to see this guy walk in. It's like really kind of did a double take, really, and he started very deferential towards him. He was great. He was very professional. He's great around camera. His son was our trainee, but no, he gets it, and he's been around, so he knows the stuff, and he's very aware, working with camera. So he was a delight, really, and he's a great actor. So, and also, all that makeup, you'd think at some point he's going to get tired, or no, never. He was always professional. Came in, did his thing. Long speeches, loads of dialogue. He never missed a trick. He never tripped up once. I was really impressed with him, I have to say.
Fantastic. Well, that's that. I have another question, and possibly might finish us up.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to assistants who are looking to step up to operating? What's the best thing to watch and learn an operator do on set?
Well, like I did. I mean, you just watch operators how, not so much operate the camera, but how they behave on the floor. I mean, back to what we were talking about earlier, how they relate to the DP and the directors and the actors, and how they manage themselves, and how they solve problems, how they communicate. Communication is a really important thing, especially on a crane. You have to have a line of communication, which is, you've got to set that up, otherwise you're in trouble. So all those things, I don't know. It's one of the kind of few grades you can't just jump into. I think you have to kind of be around operators to see how they solve them, and then DPs who are very experienced, and because they can teach you huge amounts of stuff, of course. But I like the idea of moving up through the grades. I think it's very thorough grounding for what you're going to come up to, because you might do 1 or 2 pictures and think, well, I've cracked this operating thing, I've cracked this, and then you'll hit a brick wall. You meet a director who's incredibly demanding and doesn't give you a lot of time, or an actor who doesn't cooperate, or all the things that come with just living your life. And so you kind of go, well, I remember how they solved this problem, and I was lucky enough to work with a lot of great operators as a camera assistant. So yeah, I think being around, being exposed, watching the things and trying to pick up on those things, remembering things, or even, a shot that worked really well, and listen to the director and the DP and the operator talking, how they put a scene together. And also, watching a film that you love, and watching a scene that's put together and saying, oh, I love the way that scene put together, analyzing why that worked for you. How does that scene work? Why does that resonate better than some other scenes? Or why does this picture work really great? It's not all about moving the camera. Sometimes the camera can be static, and even that choice, the choice of making that decision, when the camera's not moving at all, the framing of it all, and it's beautifully elegant, all those things are, absorbing all those things for all the right reasons, and being aware that they're all different is really important. I don't know, you can, the idea of someone asked me, what could they shadow in me? I said, well, there's not much really point unless you've ever been a camera assistant, or because it's about exposure over a very long time, to be around lots of great directors and DPs and other operators, so you see how they do it, and then you pick all the best bits and you plagiarize them, as everyone else does, and that's the best thing to do, is plagiarize.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about stepping up through the ranks in a traditional way. I wonder if, and I think this question came up again from the very early webinar. I think it was from Philip Sindel, who asked, is the qualities or the skill sets of the operator, is it a better route potentially to go from operator up to director rather than step up from operator to DOP? Yeah. Is that something you considered at all? Or?
I don't know. I mean, I think at one point in my life, I think I would have, because I really do have a real respect for directors. I think they have an awful lot on their plate. People are pulling at them from all directions, even directions that you're not even aware of as a, before you meet them, they're being dragged all over the place by studio executives, by casting, by hair and makeup and wardrobe, and all that kind of stuff. And set design and the colors, and people are pulling at them, and yet they have to keep hold of the story, and and keep that precious, whatever it is they want to say. And as I remember Henry Braham said it's about shooting the director's personality, bringing their personality to it, and trying to project it onto the story, all that while people are pulling out of you for different reasons. Sometimes there are legal issues with nothing to do with the story. So I have great admiration for them, and then they're asked to be not just practical and logistically efficient, but to be creative on top of all of that, and then to deal with actors. So they got the technical bit, and then they have the actors, and you think, so I don't usually go up to directors with stupid things that are things that they're bothered with. If I have something I show it to them, if they don't like it, they can give me a bollocking later. But I'm not gonna add to the kind of queue of questions that they normally get. And building a relationship with them is really, really important. Not just for me. I mean, for everybody. To build a relationship and try and be empathetic to what they're trying to do. So I've forgotten the question. What was the question?
Are the skills of an operator more akin to stepping up towards the role of director, or do you think?
Well, I think there's an awful. It depends on the relationship with them. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're lucky enough to be invited into that place where they're asking your opinion or what you think, then yeah, because what you're saying is going to go on screen. All that stuff that he's done, all the legal side and the wardrobe and and then you decide, well, this would be great to do this, and they say, okay, let's do that. That's on screen, like that's not some small thing. That's there it is, that like where you put the camera with the actors. That's the bit that all that stuff, all those weeks of talking have ended up accumulated in you doing that shot. So it's quite a powerful position to be in, and of course it's thrilling to be invited in. So would you like to go directing? I would if I was younger. Probably in different circumstances, I would have probably liked to have done that. But I'm not under the illusion that it's an easy job. I think it's a very difficult job. I think it's an awful lot of stuff to juggle in the air all the time, and having that kind of split personality where you can do all that practical stuff and then be creative and go and manage a team of everybody. Listen to the DP who wants to be. I mean, John Borman said recently. I was reading his book, and he was saying something interesting. So when you write something, you're on your own with the blank page. You write something, and that's fine. And then you go into pre-production, and then people are pulling out of you, you know, so we haven't got the money to do this. Well, we can do this. And so we can't like this, but we can like that. Yeah, there's John. And then, you know, so you're compromising all the time. And then the actors come in and say, well, we can't get this guy. We got this other actor. And then he says, well, I wouldn't do that. I'd do this. And so people are challenging this view you've had in your head probably for like a couple of years. And so they're taking bites out of this all the time, and you're thinking you sort of roll on and go the next day, and someone else taking a bite out of it, and then someone's dragging you over there, and it ends up like nothing that you thought of before. But you're not too pushed by that because the story still has some integrity. And then then the crew come along, and then the operator does something, and the DP does something, or the actor, and you all the time it's compromising. And then you're in the cutting room with your editor, and now you're back in control with the editor, and you're in complete control. And so it's the only time where you feel that you're in control of all the compromises that you didn't have control over. I thought that was a great analogy of it, and I really enjoy that idea that you're in control of things, of all the compromises that you had no choice in making. It's probably a good way of putting it, really. But that's the skill. That's the skill of it, you know. And sometimes, you know, the ideas are better than the one you thought, and you know, being you know, smart enough and quick enough and agile enough to grab that rather than hanging on to something, you know, I think is a real skill. That's why I have such appreciation of them, and I really do have a lot of time for them. I think it's a tough job.
Absolutely, and maybe everyone can join me in congratulating you on this excellent shirt choice as well.
Enjoyed it immensely.
Absolutely fantastic shirt. Look at that. I love it. No idea. I want
fantastic shirt.
That's fun. It was fantastic. Yeah. What was this on, by the way?
Taylor of Panama.
Okay.
That's in Panama. Yeah, that's John Murphy, the grip there. That's me. It's John Borman, and right, because he's hidden behind there is John Conroy. He's now a DP. He's just finished.
Oh yeah, right.
John was my assistant for 20 years. You know.
Wow.
His dad Jack was a DP who died recently.
Right.
Gaffer for. This is Dumbo. This yeah, the eyepiece. I use the eyepiece a lot, which I think is.
Oh right, yeah, of course, yeah.
It means I don't have any tense, and you know, it concentrates me looking at the eyepiece, and no one speaks to me when I'm looking there. Eye surgery. But you know, if you're exterior, actually on Fury, I had the eyepiece there because the monitor, if you're traveling along and you don't have a flare, when you turn a corner, then the sun hits it, then you can't see anything. So the eyepiece eliminates all that stuff. In fact, sometimes I don't even have the monitor. The monitor's there just for the director DP to come and chat to me. Often I don't bring the monitor. It's just the controls in the eyepiece, and I don't need flags. I don't even need kind of tents and stuff, and it helps me to concentrate. So I find it really useful. The Panavision made that for me during Wolfman, I think, a long time ago. You know, on film. It wasn't just digital. It was an old Genesis eyepiece that they kind of butchered up to make the work. It's great. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a tip for anyone who wants to work in that way.
It's available for hire, I'm sure, in Panavision. I think they have 2 of them, which are there. So it's there.
So we've got one more question from Anonymous. This one says, who are some of the best first ACs, focus pullers you work with? What makes them good in your eyes?
That Zen thing, that, you know, just, you know, great sense of cinema and timing, and you know, apart from the technical side, let's assume everyone has all the technical bits, and you know, I'm not a lot technical. Let's assume they all understand that stuff you can learn. It's a kind of touch, a kind of Zen thing, knowing. I remember seeing a picture, and I won't mention the picture because, but it was some actor said, "Do you want to come and look at this picture? Tell me what you think." And I was reluctant to kind of talk about it because I wasn't sure if the cameraman was his best friend or his brother-in-law or whatever. And it was just a catalogue of errors in terms of focus. It's too late. Focus is too early. Someone would leave the frame, they'd throw to the background, and there's nothing there to see. Once they leave the frame, that's the end of the shot. So you're going to get caught in this focus pull. So the editor's got a problem. He's trying to cut it, and he's cutting through this bizarre focus pull for no reason. I mean, it's not like, so, you know, so that knowledge, that knowing something that, well, I'm not going to pull focus in the background of somebody's, because no, there's nothing there. It's not part of the story. It's just, well, so you keep everything sharp, like some automaton So, it's that kind of zenning knowing thing, or, say if I have to tell someone that takes up a lot of time, and I'll forget because I'm not particularly, able to do more than one thing at a time. So yeah, it's a kind of skill by itself, and you can learn it, of course. But if you have a natural ability to understand something, it's often easier that way. And I have to say, I've been really lucky with the folks that I've used. They all have that ability and talent, which is great. It's a joy. I mean, so you don't have to worry about it. You just know. And then they'll say to you, what about keeping the focus here? And that's a good idea. So they get involved in the kind of cinematic part of it. And so that's great. I think the more people have suggestions, the better, even if you don't take it on board. It's rather than just doing their functions, so all those things are, make them feel ownership of it. They get more involved in it, and they're part of a team. And I think that's great. That can only be a good thing, not a bad thing.
Absolutely, inclusion and collaboration. That's great. I think that we've covered everything. Not anything, everything. But everything we wanted to talk about. Anything else, Des? Do you think we need to add, or are we cover? I think we pretty much set everything straight.
Yeah, I think you should ban mobile phones on the set. That's my.
Oh, that was the thing. Yeah. Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Just get rid of them. It takes people away from. They can't hear conversations between you. They're on their phones doing something. You're talking to the director, DP about something, and everyone look around. Everyone's lit up by their phones. So I think, wow, I was a camera assistant. If you were listening to your focus putter and they were talking about Zoom, you had to go and get the Zoom box. You didn't have to wait to be told that's what they're talking about. So you would, and they say, it's on the way, because you were anticipating it. No one's listening to those conversations. I find that kind of sad, that people aren't getting involved. They're kind of, it's not my business. I'm not doing my job. I go on my phone now. So they don't feel that they have anything to do with conversations that are taking place between, the operator, the director, the DP, the operator, whatever it is, the first AD, talking about the shots. They might get information from that conversation that could be very useful to them, anticipating the next shot. I blame mobile phones for that, because the first thing they do in cut is everyone gets on their phone. I think that's not good for them. It's not good for us. It's not good for the industry. And
I remember a first AD saying to me on the set, because he was very against mobile phones, he would say, "Is this what we're looking at not interesting enough for you?"
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also, it's slightly disrespectful for everybody else, to look around the place and see everyone's face lit up on the mobile phone. Well, I'm not working now. So, well, no, you're always working. Think when I'm not operating, I'm not working. You're working all the time. You're thinking about maybe the shot tomorrow or something. You get involved, or you keep it all in the air, and so you keep it all interesting and fresh. And so, why aren't you trying to do that? I don't understand why you think your function is so narrow now that this is your only job. How can that be interesting? Narrowing it down to some tiny function, and when you're not doing that, you're doing something else. That was the thing I loved about the industry. It wasn't just, and that's what I think attracts people to this business. It's not a 9 to 5. You are expected to go beyond, your normal duties. You are expected to get involved in other people's issues. You are expected to help solve the problem, even if it's not your problem. It's a problem that's in front of camera. And I think people are missing out on an opportunity to enjoy their work better. I'm not talking about doing more than you should do, just liking what you do. If you can't wait to get on your phone to stop what you're doing, then it's my dad used to say, if you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Now that becomes work to me. That becomes, now you're working, and so you're defining your time. When I'm working, when I'm not working. I've got to get back to work. Like, as far as I'm concerned, when you get there, you're working from the time you're here. That's a wrap. You're working all the time, even if you're not doing anything. I'm reading the script. I'm talking to people about something else. I'm looking at something over there. Yeah, well, no, whatever. But it's like, I like what I do. So, and I want to enjoy the day, because the day goes by quicker. If I was just finishing up and I sat down and said, well, then come and get me when they want me, and they can explain to me the shot. I'm not going to listen in on it, but they're going to have to explain to me all over again, probably for the, as I say, so I got to explain to you the shot, then I got to go over there and explain to him, and I got to go, well, if you all just listened in, that would make my life an awful lot easier. And by the time I go to explaining it, I'll have more pertinent questions rather than me telling you, the story from, once upon a time to every individual. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why that's, good for them or good for me or good for your mental health on a movie set. And it's tough. It's a tough business. It takes a lot of time and energy. So why wouldn't you make it as enjoyable as possible or get involved?
Heard. Well said.
All right, Ed.
Let's leave it there.
Enjoy.
Fantastic. Cheers, Des. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Thanks for everyone for watching as well. And see you soon. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.